two cats walk into a bar story. One of the dogs runs straight up to the counter and starts licking the cat's face, at which point he gets his eye scratched out. It's okay, he's still got one eye left. Dogs are nothing if not optimistic, and the dog says to the man behind the bar, I think this cat wants some attention here. And the barman says, I'm well aware of that, sir. I was in the middle of a conversation with him. In fact, there was quite an entertaining conversation. One would say it wouldn't be out of place as a traditional two cats walk into a bar story on a podcast, except you've ruined it now by running in on it like this. And the dog says, maybe I can add something to it. And the man behind the bar says, I doubt that very much, sir, but you're welcome to try. How can I help you, sir? He says, looking at the cat. And the cat says, I'll have a roll of your finest Band-Aid, please. Something to clean up the blood. And the man behind the bar says, certainly, sir. Alcohol is great for cleaning up blood, if I remember rightly. Although I'm not a first aid expert. I can only do what you know what I mean. I can only do whatever. Anyway, he brings out a roll of bandage, which the dog immediately grabs, because he's seen the Andrex toilet roll ad, and he rolls it around and unravels it cutely, just like the Andrex puppy does with the toilet roll. And the cat says, what in the name of Christ are you doing? And the dog says, have you never seen commercial TV? And the cat says, indeed I have, but I fast forward through the ads. Is this something from an ad? Is this something from an ad? Because that's the sort of thing they put dogs in. I know they put cats in advertisements too, but they do. All the cats do in the advertisements is eat. That's what you're supposed to do. Dogs in advertisements do things that they're not supposed to do, and they get away with it. They do stuff like destroying expensive rolls of premium toilet tissue, and so we're supposed to think that's cute. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. And the man behind the bar says, gentlemen, are we going to have trouble here? And the cat says, there's two cats and two dogs here. What do you think? And the man behind the bar says, fair enough, I'll call the SPCA. And the cat says, good idea, I'll go and hide. And the dog says, what's the SPCA? What does that spell? And the man behind the bar says, I'll spell it out for you. And the dog says, you just did. You said SPCA, so it still doesn't make any sense. And the cat says, oh, for Christ's sake, those are initials. They stand for Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And the dog says, and then the SPCA arrives and puts both of the dogs in a cage while the cats hide, looking on from behind the counter. And a great night is had by all. And now an introduction to today's podcast. This is a prelude to today's episode number 743 of Into Your Head podcast. Hello. Some time has passed since episode 742 of Into Your Head podcast. Hello, and you're probably wondering why. So am I, quite frankly. I thought I had it schedulized whereby we could continue doing this with a barely noticeable slight decrease in output while I was working on another project. I know, apparently I got so involved in my other project that my other project is behind the schedule too. Now this podcast is behind. Anyway, the point is, don't worry. It's not going away. Into Your Head is not going away. It's going to be here till I'm dead, or at least until episode 1000, maybe 2000. I'd say that. I'm guessing 2000, but let's say 1500 at least. Well, not at least, but as an average. The average, let's say the show goes to episode 1000 or it goes to episode 2000, and the average of those two. Oh no, it's not 1500 then. You add 1000 and 2000 and you divide by. Oh yes, it is. That's 1500, I suppose. But what if you decide that 1500 is also one of the options? Then you add 1,000 plus 1,500 plus 2,000. That would be 4,500, and you have to divide that by 3 to get the average of the 3. Well, that makes, yes, 1,500 is the answer to that too. So maybe it's the best of 3. I don't know. And then you get the average of the... I don't know. Let's not get bogged down in mathematician isms. Let's not get bogged down in mathematics, what I'm trying to say. I think I just said it quite effectively, except it didn't have quite the ring I wanted it to have because of my initial stumbling over it. But no, mathematician, I don't have to be a mathematician to do a frigging podcast, I can tell you that. If there's one thing I've learned from either doing podcast or from many years of studying maths, is that you don't need to be a mathematician to be a podcaster, although I'm sure it helps. It's got to help in some way. You can keep count of your episodes, you can keep count of how many bytes you've recorded. If I was an idiot savant of some sort, like I was doing this podcast, I could probably keep count of exactly how many bytes of data each word I say is taking up, so I can know how big the file is going to be before it's even ready. But we have computers to do that for us now. There's no need for idiot savants anymore because we have technology to replace them, which, if I don't mind me saying so, I think is sad. Surely there should be room in the world for doing things without computers and not have let some person have a job, for Christ's sake. Those people are people too. The computers are people, admittedly, as well, but they're not real people. Computers are people like Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed up in a freaking plastic thing with a yoke over his head and freaking things coming out of his skull and beady looking eyes. Do you really want that as your future person? I don't. I want a bog standard normal person with normal flaws, not some sort of thing where he can do anything he's asked to do except jumping to a lake of acid that'll melt him. Oh no, that's no way to be. For Christ's sake, is there no happy medium between an almost undestroyable robot and the normal bog standard human being with a brain who can think like a bog standard human being? There must be some happy medium. Maybe we'll reach it at some point between now and halfway between now and the future. If the world makes any sense at all, we'll get to that stage. But the problem is we'll keep evolving past that, and then we'll be going too far. Always take things too far. That's the problem with us. Anyway, the following is an episode, maybe this is an episode I'm having right now. Has that occurred to you? Maybe I'm having an episode right now, in which case I should record it for posterity and put her right at the front of the podcast. Wouldn't that be good? You always you want a little bit of an excitement. It's just like on an episode of some soap, they have an exciting bit at the beginning. They show someone being hit by a car, or they show the end of the previous episode where someone was hit by a car, and now they show the outcome, and then they show the car getting up and walking away without a scratch on it. It turns out it's a transformer. It's one of the transformers, and although the person who was hit by the transformer car hasn't been badly injured, it's the first sign that the Transformers have arrived, so it's a bit of drama. That's what you want, a bit of drama at the beginning of your podcast. Anyway, on with the beginning of the show. Horses walk into a bar. One of the horses goes straight up to the bar counter and says, "Hello, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please?" And the man behind the bar says, "Certainly, sir. Would you like to put up on a high table here so you can reach it from your high horse?" And the horse says, "I'm not on a high horse. I'm not on any horse at all. I am, in fact, myself a horse. I'm not a very high one. I'm right here down on the ground. My feet touch the ground. And maybe maybe you're referring to the fact that I'm an unusually tall horse. That doesn't make me high. It just means I'm tall. Unless I manage to get big show shoes or horseshoes or however you people call them. If I get high-heeled horseshoes, then I'll create the impression of being a high horse who's up higher, up. But until then, no, I'm a bog standard height horse. I'm the same, well, not exactly the same height as any other horse. Horses coming, just different horses coming in different shapes and sizes and heights, just the same as in humans. And the man behind the bar says, I doubt that very much, sir. I very much doubt that horses come in different shapes. And the horse says, of course they do. Even amoebas come in different shapes. They don't have any shape-forming apparatus at all. Yeah, look at a few amoebas up. When was the last time you looked at a few amoebas under a microscope? I bet you wasn't recently. No. You're too busy up on your own metaphorical high horse, which is far more likely to be higher up than any real high horse you're going to see, I can tell you, because if it's metaphorical, then the sky's the limit. That's the thing with fiction. The sky is the limit, and then the sky isn't even the limit, as we learned in the sequel book to Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, and none of your kids have read because you forced a movie down their gullet, and there's no movie of the sequel of the book. There's only a movie of the original of the book. They made a set 10 different movies of the original book, but no, not a chance of. The whole point of that was to get your kids to read the sequel, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, in which he gets up off his, there's no horse involved, but I was referring to the height involved, which you've probably lost me now, have you? And the man behind the bar says, Christ, there's a talking horse at my bar. Suppose there's no law against us. Maybe I should be more specific about the rules. And one of the other customers says, would you not want high horses in your bar, Harry, or wherever your name is? That reminds me, I've never decided what your name is. Not that it's up to me. I'm not your parents. I'm just a fictional patron in your bar. I meant that the waiter never decided what your name was. He just called you the man behind the bar, which I suppose is fitting until you come out from behind us to do some, I don't know, to mop up some tables or something. I suppose that's why you have a lounge boy, to do that sort of thing. Anyway, and the man behind the bar says, when was the last podcast out? And the man in front of the bar, who in fact is a horse, says, I don't know. It's probably, when we look it up now, it was probably the previous one to this, was it? It was number 742, and it came out. Let's have a look at this. Christ, it's been some time now, I can tell you. If I was in charge of that podcast, I can tell you there'll be wigs on the green. I'd go after the production staff and tell them you've been slacking up, and they'd probably say, sorry about that, but I've been busy working on another project elsewhere. I'm not abandoning you all. Oh, there it is, number 742 on the 5th of February, which is approximately 18 days ago. It's not exactly back in the Stone Age, if you don't mind me saying so. It's not like we've been through 3 ice ages since then. No, didn't have a podcast for a couple of weeks. What of it? And the man behind the bar says, I'll tell you what of it. I make my profit from people coming into this bar asking for a pint of my finest Guinness, and if no one is doing it on the podcast, then I'm not attracting anyone. It's like when that fella who runs the Hello Deli next door to David Letterman's studio in New York, people only go into him because they've seen David Letterman go into him. They go into him and they say, oh, David Letterman stood in this exact spot in the Halo Deli, and he said, can I have a pint of your finest sandwich, please? Or whatever they serve at a New York Times Square deli. And your man will say, oh, certainly, sir. Would you like the one you saw David Letterman eating? And they'll say, oh, wait a minute. David Letterman's been on holidays for the last 4 weeks. He hasn't eaten a sandwich in 4 weeks. Maybe I shouldn't either. And that's the same problem I'm going to have with that fucking podcast. That fucking podcast has caused me no end of problems. I wish I'd never heard of it. Maybe I haven't, because I'm a fictional character after all. I'm like that fella. What's that fella? I'm like that fella who climbed up the back of Mount Everest and drove he dug a tunnel down the back of it and drove the way all down. He drove a little tunnel going from the back of Mount Everest right through the middle of the mountain and emerging in a gentle slope, emerging at the front of Mount Everest, and then he drove his car down it. Did you ever hear about him? And the horse says no, and the man says, exactly, that's because he's a fictional character. And now you see my problem. Now, I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, this is the first episode in quite some time. So you say quite some time. I say 2 and a bit weeks. Maybe less. Maybe even less than that. Maybe even less than a week. Has it occurred to you that it might have been less than a week since the last episode? Has it occurred to you that maybe it was more than 3 weeks? If it has, you're wrong. Oh, it's not wrong. It's not wrong for it to occur to you. You should let all thoughts enter your brain, correct or not correct, but you need to apply critical analysis to them. This is what you have to. This is what we're trying to tell the next generation. If you were to open the newspaper today and the first page was to say there hasn't been an episode of Into Your Head podcast in 2 weeks and 3 days, you wouldn't just take that as read, even if you had read it. For one thing, if you've just opened it, you haven't read it. Although I did say it was on the front page, so you wouldn't have needed to have opened it. In fact, quite the opposite. If it's a broadsheet, you probably closed it even further than the state of closure that it's in when it's originally produced at the printing plant, because you'd have to fold down the front page to have a read of what's on the front page. People usually, I don't know if you young people remember broadsheet newspapers. You used to have to fold it down. You'd like be doing origami until you get to the exact 2 columns that you want to read, and you have those in front of your face and you can go hold it easily. So anyway, if that was on the front page, it said it's been over 2 weeks and 2 days since the last episode of Into Your Head podcast. You should be able to read that and apply some critical analysis to it. The first thing you think is what is the source? If the source is the Irish Times, well, that's fair enough. I've had several letters published in the Irish Times about various important issues. I've also had an anonymous letter from an Irish Times reader who wrote into the Irish Times, the Irish Examiner, one of those wrote in to get my fucking address just so they could send me a weird letter in which he said, well done to me and I agree with you. And as I gleaned from the letter, he didn't understand or agree with me at all. He thought I was saying something else entirely. That's how. Anyway, the point is, you look at this thing and it says it's being 2 weeks and 2 and a bit days since the last episode. You think, who's the source? Who wrote this? What fact checking have they done? Have they done it properly? Do they understand the concept? They probably do in this case. Although it's a newspaper, if you checked that 5 years ago, the first line would have said, what in the name of Christ is a podcast? And then someone else would have wrote in and said, it's about time we get this anti-blasphemy law up and running. I think they got her up and running about 3 years ago. Maybe that's what helped. People are coming on saying, what in the name of Christ is this? And Christ, people got sick of it. They said, we're sick of people saying things in the name of Christ. Stand up for yourself and say it in your own name and don't be blaming Christ for everything. Of course, if I were to say, look at this, here are the lottery numbers in the name of Christ. Christ has given us these. That wouldn't be considered blasphemy because you're crediting Christ with something good. You're saying Christ chose to give the winning 6 numbers to a ticket holder somewhere in the southwest who wishes to remain nameless. So he's going to go by the name Christ. It's going to probably sell. If you were to look down the list of anonymous winners now, it's probably find many of them have chosen Christ as their nickname in the official winners list of the Irish National Lottery. Now that's probably not. You see, if I were to see you, there's where your critical power should be working as well now. now, because instead of just listening to my claim of having a proper method of critically analysing a newspaper article, you haven't even stopped to think whether or not I'm talking crap. Can I be relied on? This is why when you go to learn something, you make damn sure the Christ as hell that the person who's claiming to teach you something has a track record and you can verify it elsewhere, because I've just been talking a load of crap here. You didn't even notice, and you're a regular listener to this program. So what does that tell you? It tells you nothing. It tells you absolutely fuck all. It tells you sweet Fanny Adams. It's not a thing you Americans say. You say sweet Fanny Adams. It tells you sweet Fanny Adams. That's not even a sentence. You go up to someone and you say, hello, sweet Fanny Adams. All they're going to say is, yes, sweet Fanny Adams what? Did she do something? Did she say something? I presume it's a she. Or is it a he? I don't know. Over here, it's more likely to be a she, and it's more likely to be a nickname. Over in America, no, it's different. We have different uses of different words. It's called efficiency. We have different words, and in different parts of the world, we can use them differently because we're in an efficient world. And that's why we're still here. Long after the dinosaurs died out, the dinosaurs couldn't even get it together to survive a nuclear holocaust when there wasn't even anyone to make it. People love to say humans are going to blow up the world and destroy it. The dinosaurs managed to trigger the destruction of their whole universe without even so much as climbing into the sea to learn how to swim. They were just sitting there eating each other. That's what it. And that's why, and as a result now, anyone who talks about experimenting with cannibalism is accused of trying to destroy the world. They say that's what the dinosaurs did. They went around eating each other. No, they didn't. They ate different species. Just as a dog will eat a different breed of dog, and a cat will eat a different breed of cat, a dinosaur would eat a different breed of dinosaur. Unless it ran out, of course, maybe if it was stranded on a desert island. Well, sure, we'd all do that. What the freaking hell would you do on a desert island? Stuff like you're just going to read your way back to wherever you came from. No, I suppose you could. If you had a book that told you how to build a boat, that might help you in some way. But don't let it be one of those books that tells you how to take a book apart. Then you'd have to learn how to read backwards. There's not going to be any book that can teach you. Well, there's books that can teach you speed reading, I suppose. And there's books that can teach you how to. There's books that can do lots of things. I don't know. Getting bored with this now, to be perfectly honest. 7 minutes and 10 seconds into this segment, haven't a fucking clue what it's supposed to be about. What did I say? Did I say, I know what you're thinking there, something, and then I got on to something. That's probably what it was. The usual. Just getting back into it after a break. I don't give too much credence to any of it. Credence Clearwater Revival, as they used to. That was a band, wasn't it? Credence Clearwater Revival, I think it was. So long I looked them up. Before I reach for the harmonica, I better find out what I'm supposed to be playing. Credence Clearwater Revival. Let's have a look at this now. Have you ever seen the rain? Bad moon rising. Was that the I see a bad moon rising? I see. Oh, I see a bad moon rising. That was back in the pre-hippie days. In the hippie days, they just get excited about the moon. But no, back in the pre-hippie days, they'd say, oh Christ, I don't think much of tonight's moon. I see a bad moon rising. And we're not going to just stand idly by and just allow it to rise. We're going to write a song about it. We're going to go, I see a bad moon rising. And 50 years later, they're going to be playing in Eddie Rockets every time a kid accidentally presses the wrong button on the jukebox. They're going to be playing, I see trouble on the hill. Don't look out tonight, 'cause it's bound to be all bright. which is just like in the day, except there's a bad moon. Maybe a bad moon. Maybe by bad moon they mean the sun. Is that why they say it's going to be bright tonight? Maybe that's what they mean. Maybe they mean the sun is the poor man's version of the it's the shitty younger poor man's version of the moon, which any scientist will tell you is not true. The moon is a lot younger than the sun. Or is it? There's a question for you. Is the moon a lot younger than the sun? That's the question. Well, my answer to the question is yes. No, I can't prove it right now this minute. I don't have a chalkboard and hours of time to throw away demonstrating it and re-getting out the encyclopedias, but I think you can take it as read. You can take it as read that the moon is not as old as the sun. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's not that you should respect the moon any less just because it's younger than the sun. No, age should mean nothing. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean nothing. The fact that it should mean nothing doesn't change anything. In fact, nothing we've said today at all changes anything. Doesn't it make you think that none of the 27 minutes of material that I've recorded this morning changes anything at all whatsoever? Joel moves a few bits around, moves a few ones and zeros around, or does it create ones and zeros and put them in a particular order? For those are meaningless. Well, it's all ones and zeros, and they all cancel each other out. It's just a zero is just a one that's being bent around a bit into an oval shape, and then it's turned into probably a smaller zero than you'd want if you only have the material from a one. If you were making zero out of if you had let's say you had a one made out of some sort of PlayDoh, and you try to turn that one into a zero, the zero that you make would be in a smaller font than the original one, because you wouldn't have enough material unless you made it slimmer or something. I suppose you could make it slimmer and less sturdy and still make it the same height. I suppose that's how you make fonts. I suppose they do that. People who make fonts are just people with heads full of Play-Doh, and they imagine the world like that. That's what Professor Stephen Hawking did when he slowly started losing his ability to write things down. He saw it on the documentary he made about himself for Channel 4. I watched it recently. It showed him he'd sit there staring at the stars, and in his mind there'd be all shapes forming and numbers going round in the stars. It's the equivalent of the Play-Doh thing. I wouldn't put it down. It's a fine way of thinking. There's more ways of thinking than just freaking scribbling on a blackboard, absolutely fucking ridiculous. Anyway, two cats walk into a bar. One of the cats goes straight up to the bar counter and says, "Hello, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please? And a pint of your second finest Guinness, please, for my friend over there. Just don't tell him." And the man behind the bar says, "Do you know I could give you both a pint of your finest Guinness? I have more than a pint of each type of Guinness in stock, you know." And the cat says, "Oh, is that right? Well, don't tell your man, he'll be wanting all of it. Ho. No. Just give me a pint of your finest Guinness and give him a pint of your second finest Guinness. And no one's the wiser. It'll all be fine." And the man behind the bar says, "It's all the same price as well." And the cat says, "Well, then why is that one called your finest Guinness?" And the man behind the bar says, "It's not. That's just a phrase you came up with. It's just something people say. They say, 'Can I have a pint of your finest Guinness?' If I'm applying by the Guinness rules and recommendations for vendors, every single mouthful of Guinness that I serve here is exactly the same quality as every other mouthful of Guinness I serve here. There's no difference whatsoever. One Guinness is supposed to be exactly the same as the next. So if you ask me for a pint of my finest Guinness, what you're asking me to do is make everyone else's slightly less that's good. And the cat says, and you're not prepared to do that for me, I suppose. And the man behind the bar says, I'm afraid my hands are tied. I signed a vendor agreement. I can't claim ignorance either, because they sent me on a course how to pull a perfect Guinness every time. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist too, to be frank. I like to pull a perfect pint of Guinness every time. And to be perfectly honest, if I were a customer, which I'm not, but if I were, I think I'd be quite pleased about that. I'd be visiting an establishment that had consistency like that. And the cat says, you got a lot to learn about being a customer, sir. Maybe you should go on a being a customer course after you're finishing all those pulling a perfect pint courses. And the man behind the bar says, maybe you should go on the being a customer course. And the cat says, I got better things to do than go around going on customer courses. Why don't we delegate it to someone else? And the barman says, fair enough. Ask your friend down there, would he like to go on one? And the cat says, I will. And the barman says, but you won't though, will you? You're just frigging playing along with me now. Not how a word twixt us will ever be said about this again, isn't that right? And the cat says, isn't it lovely weather outside? And the barman says, it is indeed, or at least I assume it is. I haven't been outside since 2 o'clock, unless you count going out into the backyard, which is more of a what do you call a yard that's around, a courtyard with a bit of a half roof over it. I don't really call that going outside. And the cat says, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't call it going outside. Why would you need to call it anything? It's not like you're writing a book about it. You don't have to come up with names for everything. And the barman says, damn right you don't. And a great night is had by all.
Into your head.
Remember, we value the opinions of you, the humble and ignorant listener. Email studio@intoyourhead.com.
studio@intoyourhead.com.
Matchstick cats. Matchstick cats. Matchstick cats. Matchstick cats and stuff.
Are you a cat? Or do you know somebody who might be? Then tell yourself about Matchstick Cats, Neal's webcomic. Brand new episodes at intoyourhead.com.
Intoyourhead.com. Intoyourhead.com.
Two cats walk into the Halo Deli beside the Ed Sullivan Theatre, somewhere in the district of Broadway or thereabouts. I don't know the exact geography in New York. There's a place called the Ed Sullivan Theatre, home of the David Letterman late night show, until presumably next year when he drops dead. I don't know. Then up near that there's a place called the Halo Deli, and I've just realised it's a pun. That name is a pun. I watched that programme for years and didn't realise Halo Deli is a pun on Hello Dolly, which presumably was a musical that played in Broadway at some. Anyway, we're getting away from the point here. Once upon a time there was a dog. Oh no, it was two cats walking to the Halo Deli, wasn't it? Well, once upon a time there was a dog. Anyway, he was a dog. He said he went up to people saying, I was had a slight learning disability. I was socially awkward as a dog, so he used to just go around to people saying, hello, I'm a dog. Of course, people couldn't see past the fact that he was an abnormal dog as they would see it. They were so obsessed with making fun of him they didn't notice that they're looking at a talking dog, which is a marvellous thing, so he never got credit for it. It was a bit like the Elephant Man, except he was a dog. Maybe the Elephant Man was a dog. Has that occurred to anyone? People assumed that that the elephant man was a man underneath it all. There's no way of knowing. They didn't have the technology in those days to find out what he was. Maybe the elephant man was a talking dog and nobody was able to tell him any different. How would you know? He looked like an elephant either way. A dog that looks like an elephant and the man that looked like an elephant are very hard to distinguish from each other. I can tell you that. So maybe he was the elephant man was a even far more fascinating creature than we thought. He was a talking dog who looked like a man. He looked like a humanoid elephant. That's what he was. A talking dog who looked like a humanoid elephant, and despite all his problems, managed to learn to talk. Which, despite even more being a dog would have slowed down. People were always amazed that he was able to communicate in any way at all. Supposing he was a dog, that was even a greater achievement. That man, we owe a lot to that man. No way of. I suppose we could give it to his estate. We could send a regular income to his estate if we had thought of it at the time. We could have set up some sort of trust fund. Although then he probably would have asked, instead of saving this trust fund to give to me after I'm dead, why don't you just give me the money now? Would that not be a go? We'd have to explain to him about interest and that money doesn't just appear. You save her up over years in a trust fund. That maybe if we could find a way to cryogenically freeze him for 100 years until the trust fund has grown enough from investments to be able to create a regular income for him out of the interest. Would that be a go? Although they probably hadn't invented cryogenically freezing things yet. Although they've cryogenically froze Walt Disney, and now look, he's living forever. Walt Disney's living forever. He bought out the Jim Henson company. Look at all the Hensons are all dying out now. What's his face? Walt Disney is alive and well long after his death, thanks to having been cryogenically. You have to even try to wake him up yet, but when they do, I can tell you, he'd be delighted with himself. He'll say, is Jim Henson still around? And they'll say, no, but guess what? Your company bought out his company, and they have to make their own new Muppets now and use them on different things. They're putting Muppets on the BBC now, except they're not allowed to call them Muppets. They're different things. It's like someone got an offshoot of a Muppet and turned it into a harmless. Some sort of harmless. It's like when, basically, it's like when you get a generic placebo and you give it to someone and you say, this isn't the Muppet, but hint, hint, wink, wink, we're the company that created the Muppets and sold them off to Disney. This isn't the Muppet at all. It just happens to look like one. Now make a game show for Saturday night out of them. And that's what they did. I do it myself if I had the power to do so. I have a puppet here. I have a cat puppet. It's filthy as me. It's filthy. I probably shouldn't be using it to wipe up coffee spills. But what are you going to do? Are you going to get something else? Are you going to get a special implement that's designed specifically to wipe up coffee spills? Or are you going to designate an existing implement that's not being used for anything else and use that to clean up coffee spills? Which is the most efficient and which is the least efficient, and which should you use? I automatically assume, of course, that you should use the most efficient choice, but sometimes the aim is to be non-efficient. You want to be non-efficient sometimes and make your life go slower. You don't want to be, it's not a race to the end of your life, you know. Sometimes it's nice to slow time down a bit and be non-efficient and take it easy. It's a Sunday morning after all. We should all relax, take a chill pill, take it slowly. I probably shouldn't have had 4 coffees. Well, never mind. Anyway, on with the show. Monkey nuts. That's what they call them. They call them big, steaming, shit-eating, piss-piling, podcast-producing, podcast extending, to be perfectly accurate, because we're 30 minutes and 31 seconds into this crap now, and there's no sign of it. Admittedly, I saw a sign of it ending a moment ago before I pressed record, but then I saw, after that, I basically blotted out the sign. The sign's down there just in front front of me. I held a hand up just in front of me so I can obliterate the stop sign. I see nothing else besides the stop sign, so I can't see any end in sight anymore. I can imagine one though. I'm imagining an end in sight further down behind that. In fact, if it's just slightly further down beyond, a bit more, it's probably visible just beyond my fingertips there. I'm just not looking at the moment because I don't want to see it yet. When I want to see it, it'll appear. Don't worry, the end of the show will appear when I want to see it, but not yet is the point. We're going to carry on for another few minutes. Class is not dismissed yet, although you're free to go if you want. You're free to go. This is a portable media, you know. All you have to do is shove it in your ears or pump it into your car stereo. Doesn't even have to be a stereo. One side of the speakers will do, as people apparently listening to this on ghetto blasters and stereo systems. There's only one of me here. You don't need to be doing that. I don't do a stereophonic performance here. No. Although if you feel free, if you want to put one of me in one ear and one in the other, it's the same me. I'm not a freaking. In fact, to be perfectly honest, I'm not too comfortable with your stereo system cloning me and putting one of me on the left and one on the right. That's a bit weird, if you don't mind me saying so, because I like being unique. Now I know if there was a clone made of me, he would say the same. He'd say I like being unique too, but apparently I'm not. I would have liked if I was a clone of him, but the other him, me, if the original him was destroyed, then I'd enjoy it. You see what I mean? If someone likes being original and unique, and you make a clone of them who also likes being original and unique, the first thing the clone is going to do, especially if he has no morals, he's going to kill the first fella that he was cloned of, and that puts me in immense danger, unless I've no morals too, which I'm not saying. I'm not going to say here whether I have any morals or not. Have a bit of not going to give away everything about myself. Anyway, suffices, if you're listening to this in stereo, good luck with that. Just don't be leaving bits of me all over the place. I've seen enough Star Trek The Next Generation. There's a Star Trek The Next Generation where there's they find a clone copy of, what's-his-face, Commander Riker, if I remember rightly, who's being left behind on another planet years ago. He was an accidental clone made in a transporter accident, and he's basically become a shitty version of Riker, which I suppose is what I'd want if I was involved in that. If my clone is less shitty than me, then I'd have a problem. If the clone is more shitty than me, well, I suppose maybe not, because he'd be representing my image everywhere. What if he turned out to be an axe murderer? Then that'd be like that recent episode I watched of Criminal Minds, where there was a pair of twins who didn't know about each other, and one of them was a murderer, and then the other fella found out about him, and then he decided to be a murderer too. You have that as well. These television programs are supposed to be entertaining and relaxing, but all I can get out of them is more things to worry about. That's the problem. Anyway, monkey nuts, that's what they call them. They call them big steaming shit eating piss piling. They don't pile piss. They pile up unlike piss. You can't pile piss the way you can pile monkey nuts. If you got a load of monkey nuts, you can pile them up nice and neat on an old fashioned corner shop store. You can make them look very good and on a little heap, and a little shovel beside them. And when someone comes in and says, "I'll have a pound of monkey nuts, please," the old-fashioned storekeeper in his white overcoat takes a few out and shovels them into a paper bag. You couldn't have a pile of piss like that, unless I suppose you froze the piss. You'd have to freeze the piss into small ball shapes. You'd have to have some sort of an ice tray that you put them into to shape them and mold them. Then I suppose you could pile them. You could have a pile of piss pebbles, but that would only work in a good old-fashioned traditional shop, because nowadays the hygiene inspectors will come down on you like a ton of bricks. They'll say you can't be selling piles of frozen urine pebbles on the shop store, on the shop frigging whatever you call call it, counter up beside the monkey nuts or anywhere else for that matter. For Christ's sake, you're a food stockist. Do you know nothing about hygiene? And you say, no, I know nothing about hygiene. I'm just imagining this. I'm a fella thinking about what that would be like. I'm not actually proposing to do this or doing this. In fact, you're not even real. You're just a fella in my imagination who's complaining about the shop that I built in my imagination, which leads me to wonder if there's something wrong with my brain. I'm creating hygiene inspectors to attack other harmless shopkeepers who I've also created in my brain. If I'm not careful, I have a nuclear war going on inside here in my right vortex, wherever you call it. What's it called? Your right forelobe or something? I don't know. Your frontal vortex. There's some part of your brain that only develops in your 20s if you're a male, and before that you're a lunatic apparently. It's very interesting. Anyway, good morning. This is an afterlude to today's already extended episode of Into Your Head podcast. Hello. Today's already extended episode of Into Your Head podcast Hello has already done its bit for society. It doesn't have to pay society anymore, so anything that comes here in the interlude is purely for my own entertainment only. And if it so happens that it provides some entertainment or stimulus for you in some way, then that's purely coincidental. A happy coincidence. I'm happy for it, but just don't be getting up on your, don't be coming back to me saying everything that happened after 43 minutes and 53 seconds on that episode was a pile of crap and provided no value for me, because I never said it did. I never said it would. I never got pneumonia. I never got flu. Point is, it's experimental. Now, if I explain what the experiment is, you're just going to again come back and slam it back into my face and tell me I've done this same experiment at least 3 times before, which indeed I have. It's the sleep aids one. Yes, indeed. I'm recording on sleep aids as an experiment to see. The experiment is to see will it have the same effect that I had the last 3 times I did this experiment. Because that's how science works. You don't just inject the aids into the monkey once and then just watch the results. No, you don't say, the monkey died, so AIDS is bad, or the monkey's still alive, so AIDS is good. No, you have to wait till the monkey spreads the AIDS further into further monkeys and into humans, or whatever the hell else happens, and you have to watch it for many years and watch the effects. We're still trying to figure out whether listening to podcasts can cause a brain tumour. That's still not known. Just because the first person ever to listen to Leo Laporte's download back in 2002 or wherever it was didn't get brain cancer straight away, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean it is going to happen either. Somewhere it's not. There isn't even a happy medium. There isn't even a thing where it's we don't know that it's not going to happen and we don't know that it is going to happen, so it's going to half happen. No, you can't even say that. You can't even say that. I can barely say it at all now. I can barely say anything, regardless of the science involved. So maybe we'll leave science for another day when I'm on caffeine rather than this, whatever it is. What am I on? I'm on half a sleeping tablets. None of your fucking business what I'm on. Could be on, I suppose it is your business what I'm on if it's something illegal, but it's not. It's not illegal unless during the course of this segment of the show you manage to get yourself into an election and get elected to some lawmaking body in my jurisdiction, and you manage to get a law through in record time and backdate us to the beginning of this segment, well then I may well be breaking that law. I'm not a clairvoyant. It'll probably make that illegal too, to not be a clairvoyant. Well then I'll become a clairvoyant if that's what you want. You want me to become a clairvoyant? I'll become a clairvoyant. Can't see it happening myself, but then I suppose that's the point. That's the point, as the man said, as he sharpened away on or whatever he was sharpening. Was he sharp? I don't know what he was going to say, pencil, but that just sounds stupid. Some fella there sharpening away, making the first ever pencil, probably making it oversized so you can have a good look at it, because it's a mock-up. It's not a normal pencil. He's got a pencil there. He says, "Oh, look, I sharpened away at the end. That's the point there. I've got a point there now because I've sharpened the end of it." And what you do with this is, you wipe it against the wall or something, and it makes a mark, and you can draw stuff. Now, I probably want to make it smaller than this, but this is just it's possible for the mock-up of something to be bigger than the actual the prototype. The prototype can be bigger than the final product. There's nothing wrong with that. People just assume it's the opposite. If you're making suppose if you were building a whole planet, the prototype for that would probably be smaller than a planet. That's where scale comes into the equation. Planet divided by scale equals size of prototype. Now, would it be a functioning prototype? There's a question for you. And there's another question for you, which I haven't even asked yet, but I'm sure you're expecting me about to be asked it. So I'll disappoint you. I'll ask you, probably you've thought. What if the prototype that you made of an Earth was a working prototype, and what if Earth is a prototype that's working? Is it working? There's the question for you. And the answer would have to be provided by you. And let's say that the answer provided by you would be yes. Then how am I supposed to respond to that? Because that's not even the question. It's just yes. That doesn't leave any room for conversation or discussion at all. You just answer yes to everything. That's why people go nuts when people say yes but or yes and. That's a helpful way to say stuff. You go yes and, or you say yes but. If you have a yes or no answer to someone's question, you say yes, but then you say something else to enable the conversation to move on. Or else maybe that's why they annoy people, because they think, "Oh, I don't agree with that fella. It's not yes." Well, then they can chip in later, and they can say no and, or they can say no yes, or they can say yes no. There's all sorts of possibilities in conversation. The possibilities in conversation are as endless as the possibilities of the ways in which you could arrange all of the letters of the alphabet in a way that makes sense. I just farted. I don't know if you heard it. Cock up your, what's they say? Cock up there something and let the wind blow free. Hold on a minute. I must look that up. That's from something, I'd say. Cock up your and let the wind blow free. Well, we'll have a look at this. Let the wind blow, but hold on a minute. Let the wind. No, it's not that. It's certainly not the lyrics to Eminem's "Cold Wind Blows." What else? Cock up your... No, apparently I think that's just something my mother used to say. That's interesting. She doesn't say it anymore. She's alive and well, but she's changed some of the things she said to adapt to modern society. Because people evolve, Don't you? Just because it's something that you say all the time now that you think is great, don't assume that he'll be still saying it 30 years from now. No. The whole point of being a human being is to advance and move on, come up with new things, come up with what we do. You can be guaranteed. If I get to the age that my mother is now, I won't still be doing two cats walk into a bar stories. I'll have advanced to something else. That's no reflection on my current self's obsession with two cats walk into a bar stories. But you have to evolve. Otherwise, why live on a linear timeline? You might as well just live at a non-linear spot along the timeline somewhere and just turn your arse to the timeline and pretend it never existed. Not in a Professor Stephen Hawking intelligent argument for it not existing way either. No, in an ignorant way. You turn your arse like the ignorant anal. What's that monkey that has the big arse? Like that. You're doing basically like what that monkey does, except he doesn't mean it. He just happens to look like that. He can't help it. You're looking like that intentionally, and you're waving your fat arse at the time and space this continuum and pretending it doesn't exist. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. You should be ashamed of yourself, and you're listening to me on this technology that was invented by the same sort of minds that came up with Professor Stephen Hawking, and you just sit there, cock of the walk, up on with your hind legs up on the freaking stool in front of you, probably with the remote control there. You're probably watching television or something, are you? Or maybe you're listening to this. Maybe you've got one of those television box sets that has podcasts on it. Is there such a thing? There probably is. Is there an Apple TV that does podcasts? I think there is. There probably is. Why wouldn't there be? I can't imagine why there wouldn't be. But I also can't imagine why there would be, because you're already able to access this. But no. Anyway, suffice to say, on with whatever this segment of the show is.
You're listening to
the Into Your Head podcast
from Ireland with your humble proprietor, Neal.
Follow Neal at twitter.com/intoyourheadpod and pretend to like him at facebook.com/intoyourheadpodcast.
Part 2 of the experimental afterlude. Here in part 2 of the experimental afterlude, we'll consider this. Consider this. Let's see, what will we consider? Well, here's something to consider. Here's something to consider here. Here's a big oversized post-it note. Now, I say it's an oversized post-it note. It occurs to me now that this might just be a standard size post-it note, a pad of post-it notes. I think it's because the post-it notes I've been working in the recent past with have been smaller than the standard size. Not that there is a standard size, just because whoever made the post-its, the original post-its, the ones with the trademark name, just because they made them a certain size, that doesn't mean they all have to be that size. Just because if you saw a lemming jump over a cliff, would you follow it? I know you wouldn't automatically follow it anyway. If you saw it jumping out over a cliff because it had explained to you beforehand why it was doing so, and it gave a good and sound and logical reason to do so, and sold you on the argument, then maybe you would. But you wouldn't just go, oh look, that's what size the post-it TM trademark owner made it. So all post-its have to be that size now, and any that are smaller are undersize. No, you would not. Post-its are not the same as lemmings. You can't just go up to a post-it and say, go on, post-it, over that cliff. Why would you? That's not even how lemmings operate. Lemmings, one of them jumps over the cliff and the others follow, if I understand correctly. I don't understand it correctly. It's just something I remember from many years ago on a sketch on a BBC Radio 4, what do you call it, panel game show that does games, because I'm sorry, I haven't a clue, and I seem to remember the line, go on, lemming, over that cliff. No idea what it was about. It's an old, don't listen to that programme, incidentally. It's for old people. It's for old people. I used to listen to it when I was 15, but I've grown out of it, which probably explains my obsession with Professor Stephen Hawking and his theories about time going backwards or forwards or wherever. Or maybe it doesn't explain anything at all. Has that occurred to you? It probably hasn't, which is why it doesn't explain it. So let's not get bogged down in arguments about post-its and lemmings. What about lemons? Lemons are a lot more interesting. Although I must admit, the only reason I think lemons came to mind is because I'm looking at a yellow post-it note here. But is that my mind making that connection after the fact? It's saying, oh, you must have only thought of lemons because you saw the yellow post-it. Maybe I thought of lemons independently. Is it too much to think that I might be capable of coming up with the independent thought lemon without having to be inspired by a blank piece of paper? In fact, a blank piece of paper it's there ironically for the sole purpose of me writing down stuff that comes into my mind. It's not there to put stuff into my mind. Oh no, that's a circular thought, and that's why I need to stop using these yellow post-its. They're clearly disrupting my thought processes. Anyway, where was I? I was right here. I've been here for approximately the last, I'd say now, let's see, 3 minutes and 45 seconds plus 9 minutes and 19 seconds. Add those two together and then add the 2 minutes I spent in here. Trying to insert a new battery into my mouse. Turns out the so-called new battery is empty and the old battery is working again. So they're explaining that, nuclear physicists out there, you tell me you're going to be able to power the whole world with nuclear fission and you can't even power my mouse for more than a few weeks with a battery that I got down the back of some supermarket somewhere and paid for with money. Ironically, I handed over round bits of copper, plus sheets of paper possibly as well, and they gave me back little tubular pieces of copper, and they're supposed to power my creativity here through my hand. They're supposed to power one of my hands and enable it to move around and around as it's doing now. I'm probably wasting power on it now. I'm moving my cursor around the screen in a continuous anti-clockwise motion, just as if it's making a point. Well, it's not like it's not like you're watching this lecture on a screen somewhere. You can do that though. I've attended online seminars where you don't see the fella and he doesn't see you. You just see what's on the screen and you can see his cursor moving around. And it moves around my screen. It's rather creepy. I attended one about something to do with the internet. I learned very little from it. But still, because I was able to tell everyone I have to attend an online seminar at 5 o'clock this evening. I am not to be disturbed for at least 16 minutes, which is how long it lasted. It lasted 15 minutes. I rounded it up to 16. I was not really rounding it up. It's just adding a little extra in just to be sure. You should always add a little in just to be sure, unless surety unless there's a shortage of surety, in which case you should round down just to avoid wasting surety. Whatever way it works, whatever the way. See, sometimes the economy has a glut of surety, and sometimes it has too much surety. Is glut the one where there's not enough? I forget. Whatever it is, anyway. Whatever it is. Sometimes things go up, and sometimes things go down, and never the twain shall be. Well, I suppose on the upturn they'll be halfway up or halfway down the other way they'll meet. But will they shake hands? No, they won't, because they're just concepts. They're not fucking people. They're just concepts and measurements. They don't shake hands. It's not to say they wouldn't be willing to, were they people, but they're not. They're just fucking concepts made up by us, and we decide. In fact, we get to decide whether they would shake hands, because we control all that. You forget all that. It's all controlled by us. Or is it? There's a question for you. I suppose that's a question for another day. Not today. I think we've done enough for today. We're nearly up to the hour mark. And when it gets up to the hour mark, first thing on everyone's lips is, that's the hour now, stop it. You can't be going over. If you go over the hour, you've gone over. You're wasting a second hour, because you know damn well you're only going to use some of that second hour and the rest is going to go to waste. Well, it's not. The rest of the second hour isn't going to waste. I'm going to spend the rest of the second hour editing this and uploading it. Those don't necessarily have to be saying stuff during it. No, in fact I could be listening to something else while I'm doing that. Except during the editing bit I'll have to listen to myself, I suppose. What are you going to edit? Let's be honest here. What's going to be edited here? No, I can't for the life of me imagine what. Throw in a few meows and a bit of music somewhere, and then you just put her up on the internet. That's all that's involved in. There's a little insider secret for you. All that's involved in podcasting is talking crap for an hour and 7 minutes, like I just did, popping a pill for the last 25 of it, and then you just put her up on the internet, and then you tell people, go listen to this. You go promote it everywhere. You put her up on iTunes, and then you pay your hosting fees, and then you go off and do your other thing that you do the rest of the time. Then you come back and you say, will I do this? Will I do another one of these? I've already done 720 something of them. Sure, another one won't kill anyone, but it might be, you never know though, it might be the straw that broke the camel's back. Or how the freaking hell would you be? What use is a camel whose back can be broken by a straw? There's a question for you. It's probably very useful. It's probably I don't know. You probably use it in medical science. If you get a camel whose back is being broken by a straw, that could be probably useful in the veterinary scientist university. They could use him as a, what do you call them, as a cadaver or something. You can have a camel cadaver for a year up in the veterinary clinic, and we'll have a generation of veterinary graduates who know everything there is to know about a camel's back. Would that not be a good thing? It can't be bad, for Christ's sake. Who's going to be harmed by the class of 2014 from the veterinary college all knowing a lot about camels' backs? Would that be a bad thing in any way? I don't think so, unless it took away from any time that they spent studying cat veterinary stuff, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway, that's basically all I wanted to say about that. Good morning.
Remember, we value the opinions of you, the humble and ignorant listener. Email studio@intoyourhead.com.